All right, so get this. We're diving deep into Charlie Chaplin today. You know, you've sent in some fascinating material, and while everyone knows the tramp, right?
Right.
With that, like, iconic waddle and that mustache.
Yeah.
I'm thinking there's way more to this guy than meets the eye. I mean, his films were global hits before talkies were even a thing.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think made him connect with audiences so deeply way back then?
Well, I think what's really remarkable is how Chaplin, managed to blend the slapstick with, like, genuine emotion.
Yeah.
She wasn't just about, silly walks and pies in the face.
Yeah.
He really tapped into something universal.
Yeah.
The struggles of the underdog, the little guy.
Yeah.
Trying to make it in a world that often feels stacked against him.
That makes a lot of sense, and we've got some sources here about his early life in London, and let me tell you, it was rough.
Oh, wow.
Workhouses, poverty, it's almost Dickensian.
Yeah.
Do you think those experiences shaped his comedic sensibilities?
Absolutely. Chaplin's childhood was incredibly challenging.
Yeah.
His father abandoned the family, and his mother struggled with mental health issues.
Oh, wow.
He spent time in and out of workhouses, exposed to the harsh realities of poverty at a very young age.
Yeah.
And, those experiences undoubtedly informed his empathy for the downtrodden.
Yeah.
And his ability to find humor in adversity.
And you can see that empathy reflected in the tramp character, right?
Exactly.
He's constantly getting knocked down, but he always bounces back with a sense of resilience and optimism.
Precisely. The tramp is both funny and poignant. He's clumsy, he makes mistakes, but he never loses his dignity or his hope.
Yeah.
And that's a powerful message that resonated with audiences worldwide.
Okay, so we've got this young Chaplin, shaped by hardship, who discovers a love for performing. He joins a children's dance troupe, the 8 Lancashire Lads.
Wow.
I can't even picture that.
I know, right?
But then he moves on to vaudeville, and that's where things really start to take off.
Yeah.
What did he learn during those vaudeville years that proved so crucial to his later success in film?
Well, vaudeville was really Chaplin's training ground.
Okay.
He honed his physical comedy, his timing, his ability to connect with an audience without saying a word.
Yeah.
And it's also where he met Fred Karno, whose company he toured with in 1910.
Okay.
Karno was a master of pantomime, and Chaplin absorbed those skills like a sponge.
Oh, wow.
It's a pivotal experience.
So that's where the iconic tramp walk comes from.
Yeah.
It all makes sense now. But it's interesting, the sources say that the tramp character didn't actually appear in his very first film.
That's right. Chaplin's film debut was in a movie called Making a Living in 1914.
Okay.
He plays a con man, a far cry from the lovable tramp he'd become known for.
Yeah.
It wasn't until his second film, Kid Auto Races at Venice, that the tramp was born, almost by accident.
So he just throws on this costume, this persona, and it instantly clicks with audiences.
Yeah.
It's incredible how some things just seem to fall into place.
It wasn't entirely accidental. Chaplin was already developing the tramp character in his stage routines.
Okay.
He had a clear vision for the character's look. The bowler hat, the oversized shoes, the cane, the mustache is a brilliant combination of elements that instantly communicated the character's essence, this mix of poverty and dignity, clumsiness and grace.
And that look became iconic, instantly recognizable even today. But it's not just about the visuals, right? There's something deeper, something about the way Chaplin moved, his facial expressions, his ability to convey so much emotion without speaking a word.
Right.
What was it about his physical comedy that was so revolutionary?
Well, Chaplin really understood the power of gesture. Of subtle movements that spoke volumes. He used his entire body to tell a story, to express joy, sorrow, fear, longing. He was a master of pantomime. But his genius lay in his ability to infuse those physical actions with a depth of feeling that transcended mere slapstick.
You know, one of the articles you sent mentioned that Chaplin often spent hours, even days.
Wow.
Working on a single gag, trying to get the timing just right.
Yeah.
He was a perfectionist, even in those early, relatively low-budget films. Do you think that dedication to his craft is part of what sets him apart?
Absolutely. Chaplin was meticulous about every aspect of his filmmaking. Yeah. He wasn't just an actor. He was a writer, director, producer, even composer for many of his films.
Wow.
He had complete control over his creative vision, and he wasn't afraid to experiment, to push the boundaries of what was possible with film.
So he's cranking out these incredibly successful silent films, establishing himself as a global superstar.
Yeah.
Then, boom, talkies arrive and everything changes.
Yeah.
How did Chaplin, a master of silent performance, approach this seismic shift in the industry?
What's interesting, because Chaplin was initially resistant to sound. He felt it would limit the universal appeal of his work. After all, the tramp could communicate with anyone, regardless of language.
Yeah.
Right.
But he couldn't ignore the changing landscape of film forever, could he?
No, he couldn't. But he transitioned to sound on his own terms in a way that was both brilliant and a bit defiant.
Okay.
In 1931, when sound films were becoming the norm, he released City Lights. It was a silent film, but with a synchronized musical score and sound effects.
Yeah.
It was a masterpiece, proving that Chaplin's genius transcended the need for spoken dialogue.
I've always loved that film. It's so visually stunning, and the story is incredibly moving. But even then, Chaplin knew he couldn't hold out against sound forever.
Right.
And when he finally embraced it fully, he did it in a way that was bold and politically charged. We're talking about The Great Dictator, released in 1940.
Yes.
Yeah.
The Great Dictator was a pivotal moment in Chaplin's career. It was his first fully sound film, and it was a scathing satire of Adolf Hitler and fascism. It was a risky move, taking on such a sensitive and timely topic.
Yeah.
But it showcased Chaplin's willingness to use his platform to address important social issues.
And that final speech where Chaplin, playing the Jewish barber mistaken for the dictator, delivers this impassioned plea for peace and understanding. It's such a powerful moment.
Right.
It shows that even as he was embracing sound, he was also evolving as an artist, finding new ways to use his voice both literally and figuratively.
That speech really encapsulates Chaplin's evolving worldview.
Yeah.
It's a call for unity, for compassion, for a world free from hate and prejudice. It shows how deeply he was affected by the political climate of the time and his willingness to use his art to speak truth to power.
Which is incredible considering he wasn't even American.
Right.
But that outspokenness, combined with some personal scandals, multiple marriages, a paternity suit, would eventually lead to his downfall in the U.S., right?
Yes, sadly. Chaplin's personal life was often tumultuous.
Yeah.
And his political views, which leaned leftward, made him a target during the McCarthy era.
Yeah.
A time of intense anti-communist paranoia in the United States.
So in 1952, he's denied re-entry to the U.S. while traveling abroad.
Yeah.
Talk about a blow.
Wow.
Imagine being exiled from the place you've called home for decades.
I know.
Right?
It was a devastating turn of events for Chaplin.
Yeah.
He eventually settled in Switzerland with his family, effectively ending his Hollywood career.
But here's what I find fascinating. Even in exile, he doesn't stop creating.
Right.
He makes A King in New York in 1957, which takes some pretty pointed jabs at American politics and culture. You can definitely sense the bitterness.
Oh, yeah.
But also, like, a resilience, a refusal to be silenced.
A King in New York is definitely a film with an edge.
Yeah.
You can feel Chaplin grappling with his exile, his anger at the way he was treated.
Yeah.
But it also showcases his enduring comedic brilliance, his ability to find humor in even the most difficult of circumstances.
And he directs A Countess from Hong Kong in 1967, his last film, right?
That's right.
Starring Marlon Brando and Sophia Loren.
Yeah. No less.
An interesting pairing.
It's interesting to see him working with these big Hollywood names, even while being essentially blacklisted in the U.S.
Yeah, A Countess from Hong Kong is a bit of an anomaly in Chaplin's filmography.
Yeah.
It's a romantic comedy, very different in tone from his earlier work.
Yeah.
Some critics see it as a lesser Chaplin film,
Okay.
while others find a certain charm in its lightheartedness.
Yeah.
Regardless, it shows that even in his later years, he was still experimenting, still trying new things.
Okay, so these later films may not have the same impact as his classics.
Yeah.
But they definitely show a side of Chaplin that's often overlooked.
I agree.
He wasn't just a comedic genius.
Right.
He was a complex individual with strong political convictions and a deep-seated sense of justice.
And that complexity is reflected in his personal life as well. He had 4 marriages, 11 children. Wow.
Numerous affairs.
And his relationships were often tumultuous, marked by passion, drama, and controversy.
A lot of controversy.
And yet, his final marriage to Una O'Neill, daughter of playwright Eugene O'Neill, seems to have brought him a measure of stability and happiness.
It seems so.
They were together for over 30 years until his death in 1977.
That's right.
It's a reminder that even amidst all the chaos and controversy, Chaplin was capable of deep and lasting love.
It's a testament to the multifaceted nature of the man. Yeah. He was a global icon, a comedic genius, a political firebrand, but also a husband, a father, a human being with flaws and vulnerabilities like anyone else.
And speaking of contradictions, we can't forget the bizarre incident after his death.
Oh, yeah.
His grave was robbed.
I'd forgot about that.
Apparently the thieves were hoping to hold his remains for ransom.
What?
It's almost too absurd to believe.
It's a strange and unsettling footnote to an extraordinary life. Yeah. Thankfully, the police apprehended the robbers, and Chaplin was reburied.
Okay.
This time in a concrete grave to prevent any further attempts.
Wow. You can't help but wonder what Chaplin himself would have made of that whole situation.
Right.
I have a feeling he'd have found the humor in it.
Oh, absolutely.
Even if it was a bit macabre.
I think you're right.
Yeah.
He had a knack for finding the comedic absurdity in even the most unexpected places.
Right. So we've covered a lot of ground here.
We have.
From Chaplin's impoverished childhood in London to his rise as a global superstar, his embrace of sound, his exile from the U.S., his later films, even the grave robbing incident. Just a wild ride.
It really is.
But as we start to wrap up this deep dive, I'm curious. What do you think is Chaplin's most enduring legacy? What's the one thing you hope our listener takes away from this exploration of his life and work?
For me, Chaplin's most enduring legacy is his ability to make us laugh and think at the same time. He wasn't just a funnyman. He was a social commentator.
Right.
An artist who used humor to shed light on the human condition.
Yeah.
To expose injustice. To celebrate the resilience of the human spirit.
He showed us that even in the darkest of times, laughter can be a powerful force for good.
Absolutely.
A way to connect with each other, to find hope, to remind ourselves that we're not alone in our struggle.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's a message that resonates just as strongly today as it did a century ago.
Yeah.
Chaplin's films may be silent, but his message is timeless.
And even though his personal life was far from perfect,
Right.
I think it adds another layer to his work.
Yeah.
It shows us that he was human, that he struggled, that he made mistakes.
We all do.
And yet, despite all that, he managed to create something truly extraordinary.
He did.
Something that continues to touch and inspire people around the world.
And that's a legacy worth celebrating.
It makes you wonder if all that personal turmoil, fueled his creative fire in some way.
It's certainly possible. Art often springs from a place of deep emotion, both positive and negative. Chaplin's life was, a tapestry of joy and sorrow, triumph and adversity.
Yeah.
And those experiences undoubtedly shaped his creative vision.
And what's amazing is that even though most of his films were made nearly a century ago, they still feel relevant today.
His work transcends time.
Yeah.
The themes he explored, poverty, social inequality, the search for love and belonging, are still as relevant today as they were in his time.
Yeah.
And his ability to find humor in those situations, to make us laugh, even as we're confronted with these difficult realities, is truly remarkable.
For our listener, I think there's a really interesting takeaway here.
Okay.
We all know Charlie Chaplin as the Tramp, this iconic comedic figure.
Right.
But digging into the sources you provided, learning about his personal life, his political views, his exile, it adds another dimension to his art, doesn't it?
Absolutely. It humanizes him.
Yeah.
Reminds us that he wasn't just this two-dimensional character on a screen.
Yeah.
He was a complex individual with passions and beliefs and struggles.
Yeah.
And understanding those aspects of his life really enriches our appreciation for his work.
Yeah.
It allows us to see the depth and nuance behind the laughter, the social commentary woven into the slapstick.
It makes you want to go back and watch those films with a fresh perspective, to see not just the comedic genius, but also the man, the heart, the mind behind those performances.
I think that's the beauty of Chaplin's work.
Yeah.
There's always something new to discover, something to make you laugh, something to make you think, something to make you feel. And I think that's what true art should do. It should stay with you long after you've experienced it.
So to our listener, I encourage you to go beyond the iconic image and really explore the depth and breadth of Chaplin's filmography.
I agree.
There's a whole world beyond the gold rush waiting to be discovered.
That's right. There's Modern Times, a brilliant satire on industrialization, city lights, a love story that transcends language, and The Great Dictator, a bold stand against fascism. Each film offers a unique window into Chaplin's genius, his artistry, his heart, and they all remind us of the power of laughter, the importance of empathy, and the enduring spirit of humanity.
Charlie Chaplin was more than just a mustache and a funny walk.
Absolutely.
He was a visionary artist, a social commentator, and a complex human being who used his talents to make the world a little brighter, a little kinder, a little more aware.
And his work continues to inspire and challenge us today. It reminds us to find joy in the face of adversity, to stand up for what we believe in, and to never underestimate the power of a good laugh.
Beautifully said. And on that note, we wrap up our deep dive into the life and legacy of Charlie Chaplin. Thanks for joining us, and as always, keep exploring.